We're live. It says so right there on my screen.
Hi, buddy.
Hello. Let's see who we have here in this here live
Oh,
audience.
you best ignore them, Jeff.
I know. I will. Once the show starts, I'll ignore them pretty much. We got
Well, Carl's
Arnie
there for a start.
and Rich from Sheffield. He said he's gutted. He can't stay for the live feed.
Well, you're here. This is the live feed. How do you mean
know.
you can't? Oh, just pop in to say hi, bye. Oh, okay, cool. All right,
Ludger
Rich.
is there. Way too early. Greg Peterson. That name sounds a little familiar to me.
I don't know who he is.
Why? Oh yeah,
Has he got a big ass?
Yeah, and he sends in really, really bad feedback.
Oh, he must be a fan then.
Yes. Oh, I see what you did there. Let's see. There you go.
Yeah. I think you need a bit of a wah, wah, wah for that one, to be truthful.
Okay. Let's see if I can find the... Huh.
Christina, I'm with you. I'm not going to stay up to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning for part 2.
I don't think I have the wow, wow, wow.
I'm going to be in bed. You used to.
Well, I did, but I'm now moving it from the iPad. I'm trying to do everything I can only on the MacBook. So I'm using the sound playing program on the MacBook.
If I put my microphone down there, it looks like I don't have a microphone. Does it still sound okay?
Yeah, it does. As long as you don't fiddle with it.
Yes, twang. Sorry.
Sounds like a spring.
I could adjust my camera a little tighter, actually. Then it would be... Oh.
Jeff, can you hear me on the back channel? I don't think you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. I when you were on StreamYard, Liz, I turned the fader down. But I have it back up now.
That's better.
Well, I can hear you on StreamYard, but I don't hear you on... I don't hear you on Clean Feed yet. Now I do.
Is Clean Feed the one you don't swear on?
Yes, it's a Clean Feed.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought that would be the case. So I got some more lights.
Did you?
I'm better illuminated now.
Yeah, it looks great.
Well, most of my lights were sort of up there above me, playing down.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of... they're so inexpensive, these little light panels, and very effective. So I've just got a couple of cheapers and giving myself a little all-round glow. Doesn't do anything to my red nose. I'm just going to have to put makeup on that, I think.
Liz just told me that we both look good and sound good.
Oh, well, that's a rare compliment.
Nice beaver.
Very nice. Thank you. I've just had it shaved.
Yes, please.
Saturation.
Still trying to find the wow, 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 wow. Why can't I find it? I have 2 soundboards to work with, and I still can't find it.
It's sad.
It is sad.
It is.
Life is sad.
I have very little patience for stupidity.
Good.
These are all very useful sound effects. No, I prefer Siemens. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. We like that one.
Good work, Jeff.
Thank you.
That's what NODAMs are. They're just a bunch of garbage.
Yes. Best quote ever.
I know, I love it. From the chairman of the NTSB.
Exactly.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Nope.
Oh.
That's not funny.
I know.
It is actually. It's very funny, young lady.
Still have not... Dang it. How about this? Nope, that's not it.
There you go. That's better.
Was that the one that you were looking for?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you wanted the wah, 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 wah.
Oh, well, it's very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Oh, well. I'll fix that in post.
Good. Can
By
we
the
start
way,
now?
I think we have some feedback. Are we going to cover that one on today's show, Liz? The number 8, Jacob. Are you really fixing things in post?
Yep.
Sadly, I am. Yeah. Not as much as I used to fix in post, though. I'm letting more things slide.
Did we have an experiment where we could hear Liz in the background?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because it's not happening anymore. I
No,
quite
it's not.
liked. I
Because
quite
it was
liked hearing Liz in the background.
It was a failed experiment, and a lot of people
Why?
were very
Why
confused.
did it fail? I thought it was very good.
Because people were so confused because I said that only I could hear Liz in my ear, and then they said, so I can't tell you how many people sent in feedback going, well, Jeff, we can hear her. And
I think you should just clarify this week and say we're going to have the back channel audible now. So if you hear a disembodied voice, it's Liz.
I don't know. How do you feel about that, Liz?
Oh, don't ask
Yeah.
Liz. She's just
she's
an
the
employee.
producer-director, so she said no. Sorry, you've been overruled.
Yeah. That's only like because she's shy.
Yeah. Yeah, she's really shy. Shy and retiring, she says.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Well, I'm retired, so
You're retired, not retiree.
True.
I'm retiring in about 3 years. Maybe. Or maybe sooner.
Yeah.
Depending on how much I'm willing to put up with. Yeah, or maybe the training will be an indication of whether or not I stay on for a full 3 years or I leave right away.
I somehow think that won't be a problem, but I'll happily take odds if you want.
Oh, that's okay. I think I'll be okay. Okay, she says, quit yapping and start the show.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Stop putting it off.
Okay.
It's only going to be a certain amount of time before I'm too drunk to continue.
Oh, boy. I'm recording. The
You
red
want me
light
to record?
is on, and yeah, I would like you to record.
Okay.
And Craig says I'm a little softer than Nick. Well, that's kind of a personal thing.
Yeah, you were poking him. Oh, well, using your finger to
I'm
prod
kind of
him.
sorry that you said that. That's kind of personal.
I've got to change input device. Hang on a minute.
So do I need to
Him too.
bump up my volume a little bit more, Liz? Okay.
Well, I must admit, I've had to increase my volume because my own feedback through the mic is overpowering you.
Okay. I just bumped it up one more notch. I don't
Go
want
to
overdo
11,
it.
Jeff.
Pardon?
Go to 11.
I got it on, 11. So actually, I do not have it on 11. I think I would be very distorted if I moved it up to 11. Okay, that's just going to have to work. Okay, so I have this thing recording, and let me see. I'll do that, and I have this, and so let's go for it.
Do you want a clapper or not?
Oh yeah, I guess we should do that. Yeah, I'll just use my hands. 3, 2, 1. You could lose a finger doing that.
I could lose the end of my nose.
All right, here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 443.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 16th of September, 2020.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy. Picture light and he's flying by. With the airline pilot guy.
In today's episode, all the instruments go dark during a flight over Indonesia. A truck hits a small plane that's making an emergency highway landing in Florida. More news, your feedback, and today's plane tale, it's not what you say. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions, electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 443 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an Emmy Award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins in New York City. And welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, ladies and gentlemen. It's an aviation podcast where we cover the latest in aviation news and answer your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a captain at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia. And joining me from his studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired captain for an international airline based in London. It's Captain Nick.
Well, good evening, Jeff. Lovely to be back on the show again. There seem to be only like two windows working. One for you, one for me. What's going on?
Oh, here, let me see if we can find anybody. Nope.
That's it, is
like
it?
It's just you and me.
Oh, okay. Well, the hairy ones have taken over the world.
Yes. The only ones with appreciable amounts of facial hair.
True.
Thankfully. Let's see. So, before we get caught up on what everybody's been doing, let's first go to some news.
Stand by for news.
All right, let's start with B. A Wings AT-72, or an ATR-72-212 Alpha at Ambon, which is in Indonesia, was flying from Ambon to Babo with 49 passengers and 3 crew. You like my Indonesian accent?
Yeah, I think you're making it up, but
I am. Was in the initial climb out of Ambon Patamura Airport's runway 22, just after becoming airborne. All display units, standby instruments, communication, and multifunction control display unit failed. All of it.
Yeah.
The landing gear lever.
Not a good day.
No. Landing gear lever could not be retracted. Climbing through about 2,000 feet, the display units 1 and 3 partially recovered, showing speed and altitude indications again, and at about 3,000 feet, communication and remaining display units intermittently recovered, and the landing gear retracted. They put their landing gear lever up, and then finally it goes, oh, okay. Yeah, sure. We'll put the gear up.
You sure it wasn't doing a Microsoft update or something?
It might have been.
Okay.
So I'm thinking if this were instrument meteorological conditions, I believe we would be reading about the accident and terrible, tragic crash of this flight. However,
we could easily be, without any instruments at all.
What are you going to do?
Don't know
There's
which
nothing.
way is up.
Right. Thankfully, the weather was not quite as bad. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't IMC apparently, and they were able to maintain, reference to the cues outside to keep the airplane flying straight and level and climbing, all that kind of stuff. The aircraft stopped the climb at 4,000 feet, positioned for a return to runway 4 about 30 minutes after departure, but went around and entered a hold at 7,000 feet. The aircraft subsequently landed back on runway 4 about 1 hour 50 minutes past departure. Indonesia's KNKT, which I guess is their investigatory agency, rated the occurrence a serious incident. Yeah, opened an investigation. There were no injuries, and the aircraft sustained minor damage. Doesn't really say how that I can recall. Let's see. Then they go into a little bit more detail. By the way, this is from the Aviation Aviation Herald. Let's see. The weather during the situation was raining, and the ground visibility was 6 kilometers. So, wasn't...
No, not great weather then.
No, not great. Let's see. Starting process of the engines was normal when the aircraft taxied and lined up for runway 22. The aircraft took off, and after airborne, the pilot verified the idle gate lever engaged. I don't know what that is. Something to do with props, I guess. Suddenly, all 5 display units and the integrated electronic standby instrument, IESI, went blank, and the VHF radios were off. The pilot glanced to the overhead panel and saw several lights illuminated, consisting of the shed light on the DC service utility bus, the available light on the external power push buttons.
They were still plugged into external power.
That's the problem. They were
they're dragging a great big generator along with them.
We're just kidding, of course. Pack, lavatory detection, and engine boost. Oh, hey, we have a lavatory. We detected it. Weather during the situation. Okay, we just talked about that. The pilot did not have flight instruments as reference for flight. Therefore, the pilot flew visually. About 1 minute. Yeah. So anyway, everything came back, and let's see. Why is it that they ended up holding for a while? Did they run some checklist or something? Is that the deal? Oh, I think he was waiting for the weather to improve a bit before they came in for their landing. Yeah.
Well, that's sensible. If he can't rely on his attitude indicators and other instruments, you really need visual reference.
Yeah. So that was smart. So, you'd think that, was this the airplane that was kind of pretty new, or was that another one, Liz? Let's see. Oh, August 4th, 2017. Yeah, so it's relatively new airplane. Not sure exactly what happened there. Some kind of an electrical weirdness, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, a supply problem. But the thing that really concerns me is if you get a supply problem to your main instrument panels, EFIS or whatever type of aircraft you're in, you would expect perhaps to lose some. But the one thing that you should always be able to rely on is your standby instruments. They should be from a completely separate power source, often just connected almost directly to the battery, so that regardless of what else you've lost, you've got something to go on to help you fly the airplane. The fact that he lost his standby instruments as well makes me seriously concerned about the architecture of the electrical system of this aircraft. If they find a fault that manages to take out so many buses that they also lose their standby instruments, that for me is a major concern.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was something about the way the electrical system was designed and manufactured, or maybe there was some kind of maintenance done to the airplane and they didn't connect all the bits and bobs correctly. I don't know.
I don't know either, but the aircraft should be self-capable on the ground before they get airborne. If something is incorrectly routed of self-diagnosing an electrical problem, if they wouldn't have got airborne if they had known that they had a major potential problem with their instruments, I'm sure. So this is just, it happens. I know Airbus have had some problems in the past with unexpected glitches, which have taken out all the display units. But never have I heard of an Airbus having a problem with the standby instruments simultaneously, because that is just nightmare scenario.
That is not supposed to happen.
No.
Ever. But it did, apparently, in this case. And thankfully, the weather was good enough for them to maintain control of the aircraft.
And thankfully, we had some pilots who had enough skill to be able to continue to fly the airplane, even in relatively poor visibility with rain around, which meant the visual horizon would have been indistinct. They managed to interpret what was happening to the aircraft, and themselves and not get fooled and not get in a situation where they lost control. So fantastic.
As
Good
opposed
job.
to the two pilots that we talked about on the last episode that were flying the
Yes.
737 and they didn't have
Yeah.
an autopilot and they could hardly keep the aircraft under control.
Exactly. And they had all their instruments.
I know.
And that really is a worry. So
Very, very worrying.
yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of designs, we had talked about a couple of incidents in the past and the fix for it regarding the Airbus A350 cockpit center console engine, management computer or whatever that thing is.
Control unit, whatever
control
it is.
unit.
Yeah.
And then because these pesky pilots were using the center console apparently as a cup holder because the cup holders that Airbus designed for it were too small or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty weak excuse,
I know.
if you ask me, but
yeah. Anyway, they came up with an interim fix, which was something designed to cover up that area so that it was more water/coffee resistant. But apparently the engineers were hard at work, since the makeshift solution to come up with a permanent solution, which is a redesign of the center control panel. And let's see, try to find the place in the article here to kind of describe the thing. They have introduced a removable spill-proof cover for... No, that was the interim solution. Never mind. Oh, well, I guess they just completely designed the panel in question to be liquid resistant. Yeah,
it's not going to be waterproof, but and just like a rubber film over your laptop, it'll probably defeat most accidental spills. But if you chug-a-lug a whole flask full of coffee over it, you're probably still going to have some problems. But yeah, none of this equipment is really meant to be exposed to large volumes of liquid. And you would expect any electrical component to have a problem if you douse it in coffee. But I was surprised that something as vital as the engine controls could be so easily shorted out, because that's one very quick way to lose your engines. And when you've only got two of them and they're your way of staying airborne, that's not good.
Maybe they should put them like on the overhead panel or something.
I think, I see that's very sexy, having throttles up here. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't mean the throttles, but like the little, the engine start switches and
it's not a bad idea actually. Yeah. Except, that's what traditionally the center console has always had, your engine controls there. So it would confuse a lot of pilots, I suspect. But
probably.
No, I think it's very hard to splash coffee up on the ceiling unless you're upside down.
Yeah, it's quite an effort. You throw it up there. Like if you get a big bump.
Yeah, it's not such a bad idea, but I expected them to come out with some fix, because it's very embarrassing that their sort of premier aircraft, the 350, suffered, or could potentially have suffered double engine failures from a coffee spill on the center console.
Yeah, it is embarrassing.
It's not good. But having said that, all you need is a bit of discipline on the flight deck, and it would never have been an issue.
Discipline on the flight deck. Come on. It says the last paragraph here, it is likely that the European Union Aviation Safety Agency will issue an airworthiness directive mandating A350 operators to install the new panel. I wonder if that's something that the operators are going to have to pay for, or if Airbus is going to pay.
I would have thought they might have to pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't know who's responsible for that, but Airbus may cover some of the costs.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that they have come up with a solution, a permanent solution.
Yeah, I expected it to happen. That sort of interim splash cover was just like a bit embarrassing. And you also needed just as much discipline to make sure you put that on the correct place when you needed to, as you did not bringing cups and putting cups on the center console. I mean,
yeah, I can see like trying to fit the thing on and go, whoops, I just shut down both engines. My bad. Apparently that has not happened yet. So
I'm very glad. By the way, I love the
knock on wood.
picture. Who the hell ever wears their jacket and hat on the flight deck when they're flying?
Apparently these two do.
Yeah, they do. I mean, don't they look dorky?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Well, at least they don't have their headsets over the top of their hats.
Well, that's kind of cool. I used to like, that reminds me of John Wayne in his C-47 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But no, these guys definitely take your hats off, guys. Take your jackets off. Look like pilots. For
They
heaven's sake.
are these like Airbus pilots or something? I mean, like Airbus company pilots?
I don't know, because I think most of the Airbus, certainly the Airbus test pilots, fly in civis. So
yeah,
wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, that looks really kind of dumb what they're doing here. Anyway, check out the show notes if you want to know what we're talking about. This one, Nick, has got me scratching me head. A Pakistan International Airlines Aviation de Transport Régional, or otherwise known as
You've been practicing that.
My computer actually just kind of balked at me and said no. ATR 42-500 registration Alpha Papa Bravo Hotel Oscar.
Haven't we just had an ATR 42?
We did. It was an ATR 72. This one's a 42. So
okay.
It's 30 less. Performing flight PK 661 from Chitral to Islamabad in Pakistan with 42 passengers and 6 crew, reported the failure of the left-hand engine, which was a Pratt & Whitney 127E. The crew shut the engine down and continued towards Islamabad, descending. Sometime later, declared Mayday. Shortly afterwards, radio and radar contact was lost with the aircraft at about 16:16 local time. Residents in Havalian, near Abbottabad, Pakistan, heard sounds consistent with an impact. The crash site was located at that position about 25 nautical miles north of Islamabad. The wreckage was ablaze with a plume of smoke over the crash site. All occupants of the aircraft perished in the crash. The airline reported contact with 661 had been lost. All resources have been mobilized to locate the aircraft. Let's see. So later that evening, the airline confirmed that it did indeed crash near Havalian. Let's see. On the evening of December 7th, the airline reported in a press conference that let's see, when did this happen? Back in December 7th, 2016. So several years ago. So this must be the final report that we're going to be looking at here. Okay. The investigation is towards a concluding stage. However, some important findings of technical nature require immediate attention/intervention. These are as follows. A. Sequence of events was initiated with dislodging of one blade of power turbine stage 1 inside engine number 1, left side engine, due to fatigue. This dislodging of one blade resulted in in-flight engine shutdown, and it contributed towards erratic, abnormal behavior of number 1 propeller. Okay. According to a service bulletin, these turbine blades were to be changed after completion of 10,000 hours on immediate next maintenance opportunity. The said engine was under maintenance on 11 November 2016. At that time, these blades had completed 10,004.1 hours. This activity should have been undertaken at the time, but it was missed out by the concerned. So in other words, they were supposed to do something there, changing the turbine blades, but they didn't. The aircraft flew approximately 93 hours after the said maintenance activity before it crashed on the 7th of December 2016. Missing out of such an activity highlights a lapse on the part of the Pakistan International Airlines maintenance and quality assurance, as well as possible inadequacy, lack of oversight by the company. Or I don't know what's PCAA. Is that a governmental?
I don't know.
The regulator
I
there.
don't know that.
Okay.
Sorry.
The Pakistani Civil Aviation Authority. Thank you, Liz. On September 8th, 2020, that's what we're talking about it. Recently, Pakistan's Supreme Court instructed Pakistan's Air Accidents Investigation Branch to submit the final investigation report by October 15th at the latest. On September 11th, Pakistan's parliament was informed that the accident was caused by technical factors and was not caused by human error. Okay, that's not really giving us a lot of information here.
No.
So apparently there was an issue with the number one, the left engine, but it must have been something so severe regarding what the propeller was doing that even with a operating engine on the right side, they still weren't able to keep control of the airplane and they crashed, which is, again, for me, kind of a head scratcher. And also this whole activity regarding the Supreme Court of Pakistan and the parliament, I mean, the government and politics are getting involved with this. I don't know. Something just doesn't sound normal or right.
No, I agree. A safety board should be able to work completely independent of governments and courts, etc. They're purely there to find out the facts of the accident and make appropriate recommendations. They shouldn't be concerned in any way about, governments and who might get embarrassed by this. I quite agree, Jeff. The loss of an engine should be, I won't say it's an everyday occurrence, but it certainly occurs most days of the week. All around the world, somewhere, someone's going to lose an engine on a multi-engine airplane, and it should not lead to the loss, particularly on a certified passenger carrying aircraft. So the fact that the engine lost a blade, well, yeah, engines do lose blades even before they reach their life limit. And having said that, I don't know if the English is exactly perfectly well translated here, but these blades were to be changed after completion of 10,000 hours on immediate next maintenance or opportunity. If it had done 10,004 hours, the next major or the next maintenance opportunity might have been even further. It might have been 10,100, 10,050 hours or whatever. So it should have had some life left in those blades. It shouldn't. It wasn't like 10,000 hours, boom, all the blades fall off. That should not happen. There should be a little factor in there that allows a little bit of movement one way or the other. So, but having said that, the loss of the blade should not have caused. It obviously caused an engine problem. Should not have caused the crash. What happened to the prop? I don't know. And it has no explanation. But obviously, if the prop did something and it wouldn't feather or created a huge amount of drag, went into reverse, did something completely wacky, then that, yes, you're quite right, could lead to the cause. So they haven't really answered anything as far as I can see. They've said, yeah, we know why the engine failed. Well, that probably would have been pretty apparent from very early on in the investigation. The rest of this is, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's not helpful. It doesn't explain to me why the aircraft crashed.
We do know that in a lot of countries, such as Pakistan and other countries of that size and sophistication, sometimes it seems forever to come up with these accident investigations or finalize them. But this seems a little excessive. It was 4 years ago, or coming up on 4 years, and perhaps that's why the Supreme Court and Parliament got involved and basically said to the safety agency, you need to get this wrapped up. I'm wondering if there's something that happened in this incident that people are trying to cover up. So
you may well be right, which in itself would be a concern because, we rely on accident investigations to be completely impartial and to be completely truthful. Otherwise, we've got a major flaw in the way we examine accidents, and we know that flight safety is based a huge amount on errors and failures and things, and we always look at them very closely to ensure that we can apply those lessons into the next stage or to modify aircraft that are currently flying so that they don't happen again.
Exactly. Well, we'll keep our ear to the ground, so to speak, and see if we hear anything else about this in the coming months. Okay, let's go look at this next one here. I think that Was this the one that you were going to cover, Nick, or were you going to do the next one?
Oh, it's the one after, I think.
Okay, then I'll jump into this one here. This was another incident, again, from the, this is aviationsafety.net. We're getting this particular information from. It was a Vueling flight. I believe that's a Spanish airline. Flight 1431.
They're pretty common around Europe. They're quite a big outfit.
Okay. Let's see. They were operating an Airbus A320-200. They suffered the detachment of the two fan cowls of the number one left engine IAE V2527-A5 engine when taking off from runway 12 at Bilbao Airport in Spain, or Bilbao. I don't know.
Yeah, the second one sounded better.
Okay. The aircraft was making the first flight of the day from Bilbao to Barcelona, with a total of 120 persons on board. On this flight, the first officer was the pilot flying and the captain was the pilot monitoring. At the moment of rotation, the crew heard a different sound than usual, and seconds after takeoff, an ECAM LGCIU-2 fault message was received. I have no idea
let me see. I'm going to try and drag that up. Landing gear computer interface unit number 2.
Wow.
I think that's
Makes sense
approximately that.
The crew carried out the relevant procedure, and after analyzing the situation, they decided to continue the flight to Barcelona, where they landed normally at 7:54 local time on runway 25 right. Once on the ground, the crew started receiving multiple ECAM messages. They continued taxiing to parking where the passengers disembarked normally. It was then that they were informed that both fan cowls had detached from the left engine. Fragments from the cowls were found embedded in the left leg of the main landing gear. Probably hence the ECAM LGCIU-2 fault.
Almost certainly it damaged some wiring, some systems that were there, sensors, whatever.
Yeah. Aircraft sustained minor damage caused when the fan cowls impacted various parts of the airplane structure. On the night of 24-25 October, so before this flight, maintenance work had been performed that required opening and closing the fan cowls on the airplane's left engine. And let's see, the investigation has determined that the incident was caused by flying the airplane without closing and properly latching the cowls, which was in turn caused by improper maintenance operation and by the incorrect performance of the walk-around check prior to the flight. So, this is not the first time on the APG that we've talked about incidents regarding, especially this particular engine and engine cowling on mostly Airbus 320s that I recall, because the Delta Airlines used to operate the MD-90 with this basically the same engine, but it was a little bit a different variant because it was mounted on the tail, the fuselage near the tail, and not on the wings. So I don't recall any incidents, regarding the MD-90 with these particular engines, but I do recall several. In fact, here in the report, the incident was 1 in over 40 fan cowl loss events involving Airbus A320 families since 1992. Now, I'm not sure if every single one of those was the IAE V2527 engine. Some of them may have been the CFM 56.
Yeah.
But let's see, an EASA AD 2016-53 mandated the installation of a fan cowl or foul pin and flag by 28 March 2019. This AD had not yet been implemented on this particular airplane.
Well, I don't know exactly the fan cowl pin they're referring to. There is a pin that is magnetic that should be retracted when all the fan cowl latches have been secured, but it had a tendency, because it was magnetic, to drop down. So because guys got used to seeing it down when actually all the latches were made, I think they tended to ignore it, perhaps, or perhaps they just were being lazy and just didn't look. To be fair, the 320, it's an airplane that sits relatively close to the ground. You can't stroll underneath the fuselage like we could on the 330s and the 340s. And you really do have to get down on a knee and peer under the engine to
Oh,
see.
you can't
the,
do that. You might mess up the knee of your
you
of
might
your
get
trousers.
oil on you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, it's just part and parcel of your job. We don't like to think we're fancy airline pilots and we don't have to get our hands grabby. But we're the last link in the chain that checks this stuff, because we do, to a certain extent, rely on the engineer that did it, the other engineer that is supposed to check that the job's been done properly, and the walk-around engineer to make sure that everything has been done. But the last check is the pilot who, in our airline, we used to take it 50-50 between the captain and the first officer. And when it was my turn to go around, I took a knee and I peered under the engines. And I wasn't just looking for this silly pin. And even perhaps this AD was for an improved pin, or perhaps it was just to have it installed. But no, you can actually see if the latches haven't been pushed to. I mean, then it's not obvious. It's not like they're sticking out 6 inches in the wrong direction, but you can see that they're not flush. And if that's your job, that's your job. You do it. I don't care whether it's wet, snow. You have a torch if it's dark, whatever. I'm sorry, you just get down there and do it. And if you don't, then you're not doing your job properly.
The buck stops with us.
Exactly. Yep. A lot of things you can't check. I mean, there are going to be doors open. There's going to be hatches still being worked on when you do your walk around. But you do your best. You just take a good look around and make sure you think the airplane is going to be fit to fly when it comes to it. But
and you try not to get too distracted by something and then, miss something.
Exactly.
That's always been my fear, like out there in the walk around and like missing something obvious, like a panel latch or something that wasn't
very much so
latched properly. Okay. You also look for things, especially if you're flying it after somebody else has flown it, that they did wrong, like scraping a tail skid or reverser buckets or something like that, because you don't want to take the blame for it.
No, exactly right. I always had to look at the engine cowls and the wingtips to make sure no one had scraped one and there was grass sticking out of something.
Yeah, because if you miss it, then they're going to say, well, Captain Nick, looks like you're the one that did it. No, I wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Okay. Let's finally move on to this regarding the Etihad A320, again from Aviation Herald. And I'm going to hand this over. I'm going to transfer aircraft control to Captain Nick. You have the airplane.
Thank you very much, sir. I have control. The registration was Alpha 6 Echo India Tango, and he was performing a flight EY 250 from Abu Dhabi to Codicode. And if you're not sure where that is because of my poor pronunciation, it's also known as Calicut, which is a lot easier to understand.
It is, yeah.
In India. 116 passengers, fair number, and 8 crew. And they're on their second ILS approach to Codicode's runway 28 when the aircraft crossed the runway threshold aligned with the runway centerline, but subsequently drifted to the right, touched down to the right of the runway centerline. Subsequently, the right main gear went beyond the runway edge and contacted and damaged 5 runway edge lights, for which the captain was charged $347 each. So times 5, that's a bit of money. And the crew received a low pressure indication before they steered the aircraft back onto the runway centerline. No injuries. The aircraft received damage to the 2 right-hand main tires. 5 runway edge lights were damaged. So the report on this is quite interesting. So let's talk about it.
Were you joking about the $347 for each light?
Yeah, I think they're much more expensive than that.
I was looking through the narrative here. Like, where is he seeing that? Oh, he must be joking.
I'm joking. I'm sorry, everybody. So after crossing the threshold, the aircraft drift to the right side of the runway due to a slight but continuous roll input to the right. So the pilot was actually, perhaps unconsciously, maneuvering the aircraft in that direction. The aircraft touched down almost at the runway edge line. So he might have lined himself up, but actually in the flare and the subsequent drift, he drifted to the right and touched down right on the edge. This was followed by an increase in lateral deviation towards the runway edge due to ineffective flight control recovery technique. In my book, that's just he's not correcting an error that he should be able to perceive. So he's effectively going off the runway. Factors contributing, they say, were the presence of moderate intensity rain showers over the runway, affecting visibility. That is always a problem, but if it's designated to have sufficient visibility to allow you to do a visual approach, or to continue beyond your minima to do a visual approach, then that is sufficient for you to be able to legally, and you should be capable of landing in those conditions. The lack of runway centerline lighting, always a bit of a problem. I was lucky enough to fly mainly to airports that had fantastic lighting, and it was never a problem. But I know that if you only got edge lighting, and Jeff's probably flown to airports which aren't as well equipped as some that I usually used to go to, particularly in the flare where you've got sort of 150 feet wide runway, those edge lights are a distance away from you, and because the visibility wasn't brilliant, you don't see them moving, away from you into infinity, or into the end of the runway where they would converge. So you perhaps don't get that in perspective that you're used to if you're landing in good visibility. The situal awareness of the commander, he was the pilot flying, adversely affected by his expectation that the aircraft would remain aligned with the centerline until touchdown. We always hope the airplane will stay where we expect it to go, but there's no guarantee. You've got to monitor what the airplane's doing all the time. So he overflew the centerline at the threshold. So assuming it's going to continue on the threshold, I'm sorry, is probably not the best idea.
He's very hopeful.
It is very. He's obviously a good chap. He's very positive. Yeah, I've got it this far. It's bound to carry on.
Always seems to work out.
Yes. The alignment deviation occurred because of the reduction in visibility over the threshold. Yeah, it won't have helped. That's for sure. And the lack of the centerline. Yeah, okay, we've done that. The several unintentional roll inputs to the right applied during subconscious action. Okay, you shouldn't be putting subconscious control inputs in. You're the pilot. I mean, you're supposed to be conscious and in control of the airplane. Doing things subconsciously is, in my book, an error. Since the pilot flying focused more on the aircraft pitch attitude during the flare and the reduction in the pilot flying situational awareness, you should be capable of monitoring your angle of bank and your pitch all at the same time. What? Control inputs to realign the aircraft were not affirmative. All right. So he, having realized his error, he didn't make a positive input, it seems, basically applying left rudder to correct the situation. And the inputs were made without an associated left roll. So they're saying that he put a bit of rudder in, but he didn't do anything to counteract the fact that he got right rolling. And let's not be confused with other types of airplane. When the Airbus is in the flare, you're in direct control. So that means that it's just like any other conventional airplane. The flight control computers do not massage any of your inputs. If you want to roll the airplane, apply aileron, you move the stick to the side. If you want to pitch the airplane, you move it up and down. And it goes, yeah, it's exactly right. It's all on you. There's nothing in between you and the controls in the flare and landing. The recovery action to take the aircraft back to the center line was relatively late due to high workload. Well, I'm sorry, there's only one job you have at that moment in time, and that's landing the airplane.
I don't know what they're talking about there.
Neither do I.
It's the same
No,
workload we always have.
some of this
landing
smacks
an
of
airplane.
yes. I'd be waving my little bullshit flag now if I had it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Despite his awareness of the deviation of the right, the co-pilot's pilot monitoring did not intervene to attract the attention. Okay, that is actually quite an important point, but it's not the real reason for the deviation. The pilot monitoring is supposed to bring to attention whether the guy, because they've already said he was a bit maxed out, high workload, have taken on board what he was being told and actioned it. I don't know. But yeah, the pilot monitoring is supposed to say something if you're deviating that much. So not in a compliance with standard operating procedures. That's just one way to bring someone else into the blame circle, I think.
Yeah.
The guy had lots of experience, over 15,000 hours, nearly 13,000 hours on type, and nearly 9,000 hours in command. So experienced chap. I'm wondering whether fatigue might have had a place here, or another human factor that we're not aware of, because someone with that level of experience, you would not expect to make this type of mistake. He'd initiated to go around on the first ILS because of concerns due to the heavy rain. He was a bit worried the runway might be extremely wet and might lead to hydroplaning. So, yeah, that's a very good airmanship decision. And he positioned some 16 minutes later for another ILS, which led to this problem. And the analysis showed that the first approach to the glide slope deviation, as well as the localizer deviations, showed perturbations, which is not a common use of that adjective. So I'm not quite sure why they've put it in there, but there you go.
To show how smart they are.
I think so. So we've discussed the first one. Just quickly looking on, I noted that there was only 5 knots of wind at the time of the landing. So regardless of the fact that it was swinging a bit, that's not going to have a significant effect. So there's no real indication. This is actually quite a long and involved report, but there's no real indication to me what the reason for the captain's lack of skill that night. I don't know. Did you get anything more out of that, Jeff?
No, not at all. I mean, I think you covered it well. Interestingly, since the CVR recording of the incident flight was not available to the investigation.
Interesting. I always that's it. That's another flag I always think about raising whenever they can't get a CVR out of the aircraft.
It was not possible to determine whether all required briefings, checklists, tasks sharing, and verbal announcements, including system callouts, took place. So, that's a shame.
Yeah. But there you go. We're very conscious that, the landing phase is the phase when, particularly when it's poor weather on a wet runway, when you get the most common type of aircraft accident that we currently getting, which is runway excursions. And they can be very serious. So I suspect that, that's the reason this is receiving a lot of attention. The fact that he came very close to a runway excursion. He didn't, though. He just, if he hadn't clobbered the lights, I wonder whether this would even have been here.
Probably not.
Probably not, which is a shame because I don't know, this particular, which outfit was it? Etihad. Well, I would expect Etihad to have the system that we had in our airline, whereas, any deviations, excessive deviations that were detected from the flight data recorder, which was downloaded after every flight, would be flagged up. And it was done anonymously in Airline just to show pilot trends. So if the pilots were starting to do something strange, but if it was considered bad enough, then through a guardian, the pilot involved would be encouraged to write an air safety report and come clean, which is, in my mind, always the best thing to do. So even if he hadn't clobbered the lights and been forced to face an inquiry, I think it would have been something he should have highlighted anyway.
Yep. For sure. Late breaking news from the Facebook chat room on the screen. Hey guys, I passed my commercial check ride. Well, whoa, this is from Ethan Allen, manufacturer of some really nice traditional furniture here in the United States. So where is the applause? Here we go. Yay.
Wow.
Ethan Allen.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
That's fantastic news. Congratulations.
All right.
I wonder what Ethan was flying.
I don't know, Ethan, what were you flying? I'm guessing an airplane? But
Could have been.
I know. Liz says, oh my gosh, that's why you're the boss. That's a sheer brain power. I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, we're waiting for his response. But,
Ethan, are you doing this with a view to making money from your flying? I can't see many other reasons for doing a commercial.
Well, I don't know.
Other than just the satisfaction of the fact that you'd achieved the same standard that you would need to be a full-blown commercial pilot, which is always very satisfying. I know that for a fact.
Well, it looks like Ethan may have just come in and left.
Oh
well, maybe if he's listening to this after the fact, he can send us a little bit of feedback and tell us all about his check ride experience and what his future plans are.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
All right, so let me go over here and make this official. It's the nope. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being told that I missed something in the news. I thought we were gonna save that one for part 2, I believe. Yeah. Okay. So that's all right. I'll fix it in post.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we go. It's the Getting to Know Us segment of the show.
And it's a nice drink you've got there, Jeff. What is that?
It is. It was a wonderful gin-based drink on our little field trip to Bombay Sapphire Brewery, or distillery, I guess. And what's the actual town it's in? Somewhere in Hampshire.
Bombay.
In Bombay. No, it wasn't Bombay. I know it did seem like a kind of a long drive from your home, but I don't think it was India.
I can't remember because it's some tiny little village somewhere.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we talked about it. What was that? Was that
we did
last?
At the time.
When was that? Like earlier this year, or was it last year?
It was like forever ago.
I don't
I think it was
exactly
end of last year.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, it was a fun time. Laverstoke Mills.
Oh, there you go.
Liz, do you remember when it was? Was it when I was over there in January? Okay. Earlier this year, I guess. Anyway, we went over to the Bombay Sapphire distillery and had that great tour. And at the end of it, it was their tasting room, and that was one of their cocktails that they put together.
One of the very pretty girls tempted Jeff with. Yeah, they were very pretty cocktail waitresses.
Yeah, I must have had too much to drink. I don't remember this. But anyway, we had a great time.
I was driving. I remember it all.
We were all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. It was a mess. No, just kidding. He was completely sober. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's see. So we talked about Ethan and congratulatory
solicitations.
Yes, all that stuff.
No, not solicitations. That's something completely different.
Oh,
felicitations.
That was at the distillery. Now it's all becoming clear to me. Oh, yes. Thank you, iHaul Boxes. I keep forgetting his actual name. Sorry. We are going to be doing another 2-part show today. Thank you for reminding me. And Liz was also reminding me earlier that I should mention that because Rick, his schedule changed again, and he was not going to be available. I think he's in the last couple of hours of his flight from Narita to Sydney at the moment, or he's getting close to landing there, apparently, or maybe. But he is going to get to his hotel and be ready to go probably around, what, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern time? 000Z time, or Zulu time.
1 o'clock in the morning, my time.
Yeah. So, needless to say, we are not expecting Nick to rejoin us for the part 2. Steph was going to try to make it for the part 1. However, there was a little snag at work and patients not showing up on time and such. So she is going to try to make it for part 2
Steph,
later tonight.
having problem with her patients.
Yeah, patient like her medical patient. Her victims.
Okay.
Her backstabbing victims.
Yes, her victims.
Yes. So that's the plan. So stay tuned for a tweet/Facebook post indicating when we're going to start for sure. And I'll set up everything so that we can do a part 2 later on. So that's the reason why. Yeah, a little bit of a gap in between so you can have a little snack or dinner or a drink or two and then come back.
Or go to bed.
Yeah, or go to bed. We're not talking about you. Anyway.
Don't blame you.
But let's talk about you, though, Nick. What have you been up to since the last episode?
Oh, nothing. How about you, Jeff?
Really? That's it? Nothing?
Well, to be truthful, not much has happened.
Yeah.
A few house improvements. The weather has been quite pleasant. We've had a little burst of warm weather before that true autumn sets in. That'll peat it off by the end of the week. But it has been pleasantly warm, like 25, 26 degrees today.
That's
a
nice.
little warmer yesterday.
Getting close to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's nice.
Yep. Ideal. Kind of a little bit humid. That's been the only hassle.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm been busy knocking out plane tasks because I've got a photo shoot coming up on Friday. So I didn't want to have that hanging over me because photo shoot usually involves about 3 solid days of work. So I don't have a lot of spare time.
Right.
So, yeah. Other than that, nothing much really.
Okay. Well, not a heck of a lot going on with me either. However, and I think I mentioned it on the last episode that I was going to be meeting up with one of our community members. And that will become apparent when I play this little audio that I recorded when I met up with said community member. Let's see, Captain Jeff here at the Atlanta International Airport. I'm very, very confused. I'm not used to seeing all the sights that I'm looking at here, passengers walking around and flight attendants and pilots walking around in their uniforms. One of these days, I want to be a pilot, just like, oh, wait a minute, I am. Just doesn't feel like I am. Anyway, we're in the middle of the A spine at the Atlanta International APG community member. I think he's the CEO, president of the, somewhere high up in the chain, I'm sure, of the very large donkey fan company in Lexington, Greg Peterson.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing? I'm on my way out to LAX. I was going through Atlanta, so I reached out to Jeff to see if he wanted to get together for a little mini meetup. So he met me and we had a little lunch together, and now I'm getting ready to board my flight to LAX. Going to do a little plane spotting with some friends of mine out there this weekend, and then head back on Sunday.
Very cool. Yeah, and my schedule is awfully busy. I just happen to have a little spot open in my calendar. Yeah, like everybody knows, I don't do anything anymore. Still waiting for training. And so he told me he was going to be coming through the ATL, and I thought, yeah, let's get together. I miss doing meetups with the community, and it was so great to be with. I've had meetups with Greg in the past, so it was like meeting an old friend. It is meeting an old friend. And so it was great to get all caught up with what's happening with you and your family and job situation, all that stuff. And look forward to hearing from you when you get back from this plane spotting trip out to LAX.
I'll have to post some pictures when I get back. Once I see how many good pictures I get, I'll send some to Jeff and he can pop them up in the show notes or whatever.
Well, we always look forward to your feedback, Greg. Well, most of the time we really look forward to your feedback. Kind of an inside joke. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off from ATL. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Well, Greg is in the live audience right now, and he says that he took 2,250 photos while he was out there. And
wow, and they're all of the same airplane.
Yeah, no, I hope not. I'm not sure.
So do I.
Maybe he can
So do
clarify. But interestingly, just before the show, a couple of hours before the show, Greg texted me, and I hope it's okay for me to share this. He said, 50 years of flying on airplanes, and I got my first go-around on my flight from Atlanta to Lexington on Monday morning, and when he was returning after this plane spotting weekend in Los Angeles. And I said, well, you know, the question that must be asked, did you start humming You Can Always Go Around? Oops, that's going green. Here we go. And his response was, I actually did. So,
excellent.
I said, yep, knew it.
I used to have to try and stop myself from doing exactly that on finals, just in case I said out loud, you can always go around. And the guy took, yeah.
What? Oh, go around.
Yeah.
No. Never mind.
just singing a song. Sorry.
Yeah, just singing a song in the flare. Yeah, that's not a good time to do that.
No.
So good to see that you're back and that you took a bunch of photos, Greg. So send us some feedback, and don't send all 2,250 photos. Just pick a couple of them.
A couple, yeah, be good.
Put that in the show notes. But anyway, it was really nice meeting up with Greg. We had a little lunch at the PF Chang's, little Chinese place in the airport. It was a little odd being in the airport because it had been a little over 3 months, like 3.5 months since I'd been in the airport. And that is going to change. Thank you, Liz. A nice little segue. I had been saying that, and people have been asking a lot when I was going to go to training. And for the longest, well, the original notification was that I was going to start training in October. And I thought, well, I keep getting closer and closer to October, and I keep checking the training schedule and notification about training in my the scheduling system and not seeing a thing. And I'm thinking, well, I just made the assumption that I'm not going to be training in October. It's probably going to be November, or maybe even after that. Maybe they were all backed up or something. And then just the other day, either yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was looking through my email, not my normal email, but another address that apparently the company uses to notify me of such things. And there was an email sitting there that said, Acme training letter. And I went, huh? And so I looked at it, and I am indeed starting training on the 717 starting the 5th of October. So basically I'll be training all month in October. Check ride looks like scheduled for the 31st of October, Halloween. I hope it's not full of fright and horror.
Well, it depends who's giving the fright and the horror.
I'll be.
So long as you're dealing it out, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully everything will go nice and smoothly. And so yeah, I'll be starting training very, very soon. And I kind of panicked a little bit. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I thought I had another month to kind of fool around and not study. And then now I realize I got to really start cramming for this stuff and taking care of all that training that they expect me to do, computer-based training, before I show up. And then one of the first things that they throw at you is an electronic systems validation, I think they call it, ESV, where you kind of go in and on a computer and have a big test. And I think there's a minimum passing rate. So I'm going to have to make sure I know the systems, which are pretty, they're going to be quite familiar. I think they're very similar to the MD-88, MD-90 systems. A little bit more modern, but in general, fundamentally, they're the same kind of system. So should be okay. Fingers crossed. So that was some news. And
oh, I think it's great
yeah,
news.
we'll definitely try to do the show while I'm doing the training. Might be a little bit of a challenge to find a good time to do it, but we'll see. It looks like I'm off every single Sunday. I know Sunday is not necessarily the best time for everyone, but we'll see what we can work out so that I do need to focus mainly on the training and less so on the show. But luckily, fortunately, I have very sharp people, co-hosts and producer director that will be doing a lot of work in the background, and maybe I can just walk up to the microphone and start talking, and we'll do it. Liz says we'll do our best. So yeah, shouldn't be any kind of an interruption for the show recording. Eruption. Yeah. Interruption. Yes. Or I hope there's no kind of an eruption either.
So do I. Very ugly on YouTube.
A family show, right? Okay. So that is the news on the training front for me. And I think that was all really I had. I might be meeting up with one of the community members, a co-host of the Plain Talking UK, PTUK podcast, Armando. I believe we're going to meet up for an early dinner tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. And
I'll give him my best, please.
I will. I certainly will. Okay. With that, I think it's time for us to go to the coffee fund. So we play the coffee fund jingle.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea.
I love the APG community.
Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh yeah. That is Jeff Smith singing the APG version of the Java Jive, because we're going to talk about coffee. Well, actually, we're going to talk about contributing financially to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. We call it the Coffee Fund. A couple different ways you can do it. One is the Coffee Fund Classic method. And since the last episode, George Leslie sent in a recurring contribution. Thank you, George. And the other way to do it is to become a patron of the show via patreon.com/airlinepilotguy. And that's where you basically pledge a certain amount per episode, and you can specify a maximum amount so we don't break the bank as such. And since the last episode, we have a new patron, a new producer, John McCulloch. I just got this message, I think it was yesterday or maybe today, that John McCulloch has just become a $1 patron. So thank you very much, sir, for that. Hey, if you want to join this great group of folks, please head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee and join the Coffee Fund. You'll be glad you did, and we will as well.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, feedback time. Let's go over here to the feedback. Got about a half an hour until the PT time, Liz tells me.
Cool.
All right. Let's start with the first item in our feedback folder from an anonymous PGA sufferer. Huh? Good evening, dear Captain Jeff and your interesting co-hosts. Interesting? Yeah.
Okay.
Good word for it. First of all, even though Captain Nick, the salty one, yes, I'm originally from South Africa, and we don't always see eye to eye due to certain historic events, is British. I do applaud the elegance he brings to the show in terms of pronunciation. And then he laughs. Bah, ha, 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 ha. You all Americans do butcher the English language sometimes. Thank you. Retract that. Liz actually brings real elegance with her Canadian accent. Yeah, Liz
Well,
says.
a South
So
African really has got no leg to stand on when it comes to awful accents, but there you go.
That South African accent has always befuddled me a little bit when I hear one and I'm thinking, what is that I'm hearing? Sometimes it sounds like a Germanic or German accent, and then other times it sounds like an English accent.
Well, it's English with a lot of Dutch thrown in, so
hence the combination of languages, I guess.
Yeah, I know. They're just strange people.
They are strange people.
Don't worry
that's for
about
sure. But they're really nice, strange people.
Yeah, most of the ones, yes. I'm not too sure about this person, but there you
Liz
go.
says, I love this guy. Yeah,
yeah, well, she would.
Flattery will get you everywhere. Apparently.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anonymous. Too bad you don't know who this person is, though, Liz, because he or she is anonymous. Let's see. Was listening to show 440 where you guys spoke about modern pilots' inability to fly the plane. To my horror, a year or so ago, I spoke to my friend, an instructor pilot at a very prestigious flying school. I won't mention the name, but let's just say it's Acme Cold. Not sure which airline that is. Anyway, as we were observing a student and instructor pilot depart, my friend mentioned something along the lines of, now just switch to autopilot and enjoy the ride. I questioned him about switching to autopilot at such an early stage. The plane was barely 1,000 feet in the air. I said the fun in flying is the actual hand flying the airplane. His reply was even more shocking. He mentioned that once in the air and on autopilot, he can relax. That's really not true. Yeah, well, if you do, you might get into trouble.
Yeah.
This is what these schools teach. Switch to autopilot as soon as possible. Take it with a pinch of salt because I'm not in the school learning to fly, but I think I have that 50% accuracy covered. That's good. But it most definitely sounds like these prestigious Part 141 pilots are spoon-fed automation. This is where the problem lies. From ab initio, these guys rely on automation. I will probably also be scared to actually fly the plane if so infrequently do. Wait, I think I read that wrong. I will probably also be scared to actually fly the plane if I so infrequently do. Yes, I agree. I've always wanted to be a pilot, but unfortunately things have not always gone according to plan. Have had some exposure to flight training, and the best part was handling the aircraft yoke and throttle. I know enough about flying to know I am dangerous. Guess modern day pilots all have Airbus aspirations. Yeah. Regards and thanks for the fun show, Anonymous. And then he puts a PS in here, which might explain why he said at the beginning he was a PGA sufferer. He says, the APG syndrome has taken on an unrelenting form in me, the GPA syndrome. Downloading episodes on iPhone, and for some reason it plays the newest episodes first and moves backwards. Kind of fun.
Very good.
But isn't that the way that it works with all podcast clients?
Yeah, it usually brings up the most recent.
Yeah, that's the way it works on all the ones that I use. So I don't think that's. Yeah. What did you say? Last in, first out. Yeah. Okay. So let's break this down a little bit. Kind of a little bit of a snarky comment about Airbus, which.
Yeah, I'm going to take him on about that, but you carry on, Jeff.
Okay. Well, I can say that we do know Louisiana Steve, or I guess now maybe Indiana Steve. I'm not sure exactly what he's calling himself. Haven't heard from him in a while. Was going through a Part 141 school, which I will leave unnamed. But he basically told me the same thing, that they rigorously, probably shouldn't say that word, rigorously,
very good.
Not religiously, but with rigor, they teach that automation is what you do. You don't do any hand flying at all. And he was kind of, perplexed by that as well. And he said, yeah, the reasoning, he said, the instructors gave to him was that's the way they do it in the airlines. So they're teaching this at the at the sub airline
I
level.
think they've got the wrong end of the stick.
They do.
But
yeah, I agree, and he does as well, and it is shocking and concerning that these schools are teaching this kind of stuff. But as you know, we've always said on the show, it's important to know how to fly the airplane every way, whether it be manually flying the airplane or using the automation. You have to have skills in both. So
yeah, you have to
all
be
that's
the
important.
complete pilot, don't you,
Yep.
Jeff? I mean, there's no point being able to hand fly the airplane extremely well, because there are times when automation is a requirement. You can't go into some airspace without automation because of the reduced separation that we now have. So, you know, you've got to have a really firm understanding of the automation and how the aircraft will behave in its different automatic modes.
And that's why I mentioned, like, when his comment about, you know, or not his comment, but the friend of his that is an instructor pilot, saying that, you know, once he gets it on autopilot, he can relax. And I'm thinking, ooh, don't think that way, because you know, you're still flying the airplane using the autopilot system, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you should, and those errors that creep in because of a badly typed instruction in your flight management computer, flight guidance computer, that you don't pick up on quickly, can really lead you astray. So, you know, it won't crash the airplane, but you could deviate severely from the flight path or the SID that you're trying to fly, and end up
making a bad day.
Exactly right. And you can end up very close to another airplane or infringing other piece of airspace or whatever the problem is. So you really do have to keep on your toes. And it's not easy when the automation is on, because, you know, it's a bit of a laborious process, just checking the airplane's doing its thing properly. But the reason I'm going to do the Airbus thing is not just because I was an Airbus pilot, but this is not an Airbus thing. This is an autopilot thing.
Right.
And autopilots have been around with us, you know, since the 50s, for heaven's sake. And
what, before Airbuses?
Yeah, well, amazing, isn't it? Wow. And, you know, my father was an airline pilot. In fact, he was a training captain or an instructor pilot, as some Americans, and a Czech pilot. And he complained all the time about the fact that the pilots back in the 1970s were losing their flying handling skills because of overuse of the autopilot, and that hasn't changed. Nothing in that area has changed. Airbus have altered the way in which the aircraft is controlled and the protections the aircraft has, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about hand flying the airplane against putting the autopilot in. And so that this problem has been around with us for decades, and still we're facing the same hassle of guys using the autopilot perhaps too much, so that they don't maintain their hand flying skills. Having said that, flying an airliner, there really is very few hand flying skills you need, unless you're, you know, doing something tricky in a bad crosswind on a nasty day for a landing. Because once you're airborne and you're on the SID, you've got a few gentle turns to do. You've got a couple of level offs. I mean, where's the skill required in that? So to a certain extent, once you're a few thousand feet above the ground, I can't see the problem necessarily with putting the autopilot in. Certainly on the descent and the approach, much more testing flying, because you're really trying to manage the aircraft's energy and you're trying to intercept ILSs or whatever the requirement is. You're trying to manage the speed and get every aircraft configured appropriately. Trying to do everything expeditiously requires a lot more thought and practice. But getting airborne, 1,000 feet, boom, the autopilot's in.
It's almost,
I don't really,
you know, you hardly even have to think about it.
Yeah. So all right. It's not an Airbus thing. It's an autopilot thing. It's been around with us for 50 years or more. It is well recognized, but it's very hard to fix. I certainly don't think flying schools should be encouraging people to use automation unless they're trying to check on their ability to use the automation in their aircraft properly. I think if they're doing that, it's fine.
That's important, yes. As we keep saying over and over again, you have to know how to do it all. Not just be an autopilot manager expert. You have to also be able to hand fly the airplane as well. Got to do both.
Very much so.
All right. Very good. Well said, sir.
Should we climb off our soapboxes now?
Yes, we shall. Let's move them out of the way. Okay. But I'm going to keep it very close by just in case we need to step up onto them again.
I need to jack my seat up.
Yeah, well,
no, I'm not on the soapbox anymore.
Well, get back up on the soapbox. And if we can't see the whole... Okay, there you go. All right. This is from Aviator Tony. Greetings, Captain Jeff and APG family. It has been a spell since my last communique to you all. What can I say? 2020 has kicked me in the pants. These past few months have been rather difficult for so many of us within the aviation community. The stress levels we have to manage daily have been peaking into the red as we navigate so many questions about our careers, the reduction of air service, the potential for upcoming furloughs, the complexity of leave options, and what undoubtedly has been a drastic increase of passenger disturbance events aboard our aircraft. Passengers have done lost their minds. In the wake of all these heavy factors, I feel blessed to have found a few ways to cope with all of this noise. Some of the simple joys that continue to help me get through this cursed and demonic year are listening to your podcast each week, doing all I can to keep a full flying schedule while I still can, and spending what little free time I have left producing the Squawk Ident podcast as well. Ooh, see how you slid that one in.
Yeah, quick plug.
Listening to and speaking with fellow aviators about this current turbulent rotation around the sun helps tremendously. At least it does for me. Let's see. If the CARES Act is not extended prior to October 1st, I too will be affected by the downturn. Over here at Legacy Airlines, I believe you all call it Ajax, 2,500 WARN, W-A-R-N letters went out. In an effort to mitigate the number of furloughs among the pilot group, the company and union have worked out a plan to offer 6-month leaves of absences with options for an early out, an alternating month line option, and a zero time line option. Pilots who had received WARN letters were offered the option to bid for conditional leaves of absence, meaning in lieu of furlough, seniority permitting. Said pilot would receive a zero-time or alternating month schedule. Well, I unfortunately received a ZTL option, zero-time line, in lieu of furlough. I guess that means that he's still not technically furloughed, but he's not getting any time either, which is the way we get paid, at least here at the Legacy Airlines in the United States. With that said, the extension of the CARES Act not only affects pilots, but tens of thousands of airline employees across our nation. Let's keep our fingers crossed that the time to start rebuilding our industry is just around the corner. On a lighter note, I like how you have been including Liz's audio into the feed. It is like having an inside track on how the boss keeps you all above the 50%.
Yeah, I like that. I was just telling you earlier. I think we should keep that on.
Well, we'll see. We have to get an affirmative acquiescence from the producer director before that happens.
Look, I just saw her give a thumbs up.
No, that was not the thumbs up.
Oh, okay. It wasn't a thumb.
No,
oh,
it was her middle finger, I think.
Oh, dear. Okay.
I have come to realize that as time's beating drum seems to be ringing louder this year, the feeling that the APG crew is more like a part of the family than a podcast program has helped me, as I am sure many of your listeners too feel less anxious about what lies ahead in our industry. As I've listened to APG over the last few months, I've laughed, smiled, and even shed an occasional tear. But most of all, I have felt a part of something great, a community. It becomes a very small industry when you can say that. So cheers to you, Jeff, Steph, Nick, Rick, Liz. Thank you for helping so many of us get through this rotation. I also wanted to mention that I recently came across a link on the socials that I thought you and the crew would enjoy. Have you seen these old 1960s short films produced by the FAA about topics ranging from density altitude to radar controllers? I've been watching these old clips on YouTube. Very entertaining. And then he included some links, which we'll have in the show notes if you want to check them out. And it goes, anyways, keep up the great work. Shameless plug inserted here. Again, check out aviatortony.com. That's AV8, the numeral 8, RTONY, av8rtony.com, and the Squawk Ident podcast, Tailwinds, etc., etc. Aviator Tony and crew from the Squawk Ident podcast. So check it out if you want to check out another great aviation-related podcast. And thank you very much, Tony, for the nice words. And we do actually, and we say it quite often, probably every show, that the best part of this whole thing is the community. And we're not just saying it just to say it. I mean, we really do mean it. And we're so happy that we have people like you as part of it. So,
yeah, and any small way that we can sort of keep people's spirits up, if you can say that, or find a way to, console people who are having a hard time of it during this time, then that for me is incredibly well spent time. So,
right.
Yeah.
We know we have your attention. We're in your ear for 3 hours or so every week, and we want it to be a positive experience for everybody and lighthearted and entertaining and maybe even learn something.
No.
No? Okay,
no,
forget that.
Don't want you to learn anything from us.
Well, we learn from you all, because if we say something that's not right, darn.
Well, that's true. I know more about propellers now than I ever did.
I know. And have I ever told you about P factor? Let me tell you about. No, never.
Only when I was standing next to you in the gentleman's.
That's a different kind of P factor.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Anyway, we're not going to get into that. All right. Okay. 4. Thank you, Liz. I came across this video from what appears to be the late 80s, early 90s, aside from the fact that it has the worst music ever produced by the human species. I didn't think it was that bad, actually. It has awesome videos of some real classics taking off and landing. It starts around the 11:30 point, and at 13:30, there's a Acme 727. Maybe Captain Jeff was flying? And a lot of the footage is taken from the...
Is it wobbling a bit?
Yeah, it was. It was really... People were running away and screaming. That was probably me. It was O'Hare International, and... I wrote back to Darren and said, yeah, it could have been me, because I flew to O'Hare quite often on the 727, and it was right around that time frame. So who knows? Maybe it was me. But we have a link to that YouTube video. You'll have to listen to the music yourself to make the determination whether you agree with Darren that it was the worst music ever produced by the human species. Yeah, maybe Liz says we should set up some kind of a poll to see how many people think it's the worst ever. Yeah, thumbs up.
I think so. And then send in their contributions as to what is the worst in the universe.
And send in monetary contributions as well.
Yeah.
This got to, going back to Darren's feedback, this got me to thinking. I've heard Captain Nick say that while the 747 was great in its day, it's too old and time to retire to make room for the new airplanes like the 787 and the A350. I absolutely agree with Nick here from a practical point of view, but when I first saw an A350, I thought it was a 787. They really are very similar looking. Clearly, these
Did you have your glasses on, Darren?
Clearly, these supercomputers that aircraft manufacturers use are converging on a design that's the most aerodynamically efficient. And that design appears to be the 787/A350 since they're so similar looking. But I must say, I sure do miss the days of the vast array of different airplanes you'd see in the airport. 727, 747, DC-10, L-1011. Now, they're all starting to look the same and rather vanilla. I know efficiency is more important than aesthetics, but I was wondering how you guys feel about this. Do you miss seeing all those cool looking airplanes? How do you feel about the design of new airplanes from an aesthetic and style point of view? Absolutely love your show, Darren. Darren, we absolutely love you for being a part of it. And what do you think, Nick?
It's a great question.
These new airplanes.
And when I wasn't an airline pilot, I used to have to identify airliners because I didn't want to shoot down the wrong airplane. And I really did struggle because, you know, even though some had 3 engines and some had engines under the wings, and I had a real problem telling them apart because they're very generic. They're a tube, a pair of wings, and you got to find somewhere to stick the engines. Because becoming an airline pilot, I actually needed to try and work out what the differences were, because when air traffic say you're next in the queue behind the A320 or the A319, you actually have to be able to work out
look over what is
which
that?
one of those it is.
You understand
Otherwise,
what
you
that
kind of like blunder in the queue in front of the wrong airplane, and everyone gets upset with you. So I kind of took a bit more of an interest, but I do agree. Once you get aerodynamics down to a certain point, they are going to merge. And in the days when you didn't have computers to give you all this assistance, the designers used to be a bit freer with their ideas. But I saw a fantastic video the other day, and it was a KLM flying wing, and it's an Airbus KLM conglomerate. It's a concept project that these have gone together, and they're looking at the next generation of airliners, and they're looking at a flying wing as possibly the next generation of airline design.
We actually have a video clip of it
on this show,
but it's not on today's episode. It's in the staging folder. But yeah,
okay.
the
Well,
exact
you'll get to see it then. You'll get to see it. I think it's a fabulous idea, and it's not a new idea. Flying wings have been around since the war, but now with the modern composites and capabilities and the way that computers can model these things, they're really seriously looking at it for the next generation of airliner, and I think that is very exciting. It's such a separation from what we currently have.
It really is.
It would be amazing to see them in the air. It really would.
Yeah, they have a scale model of it right now, and they're trying to, see if it is going to be as efficient as they think it could prove to be. So we'll probably have that piece of feedback with the accompanying video on the next episode. Yes, Liz? Next show. Yeah. All right.
Brilliant. Well, look for the next show, guys, because it really is. It's superb to see this thing flying. It looks very cool.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, the best part of it, though, is the engineers that are actually flying the little model airplane. They're the best part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
I hate to think how much this cost, and they had to get a specialist pilot in there to, do the radio control of it. And I'm just thinking that guy was so cool because
they were very, very serious.
Very expensive model.
Very serious. Probably too serious, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, you'll see what we're talking about on the next show. Quickly, William writes, catching up on episodes after getting behind, listening to Killing Zone, How and Why Pilots Die. A great read, by the way. I don't like that. I don't like that title at all, William.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say here?
Yeah.
Anyway, y'all were talking about the MD 2020, and we're not talking about an airplane here. We're talking about what we used to term here in the U.S. as teenagers, drinking age, of course. MD 2020, or Mad Dog 2020. Interesting trivia. MD stands for Mogan David, a kosher winery. After they do their pressing for their wine batch, they have leftover mashed grapes. Instead of throwing it out, they run it through another mashing. The resultant product is low quality and not enough sugar to ferment into enough alcohol content, so they fortify it with ethanol and add flavoring. As such a cheap product. Now you're
Sounds
getting
gorgeous.
It's not a fine wine. Just trust me. As such a cheap product, they don't want to sell it under their own label. Thus the MD, not Mogan David. MD 2020 was 20 ounces at 20% ethanol. ETOH. What does that stand for? Ethanol. I don't know. I guess
estimated time out of hospital.
I don't think so, but yeah, I
Okay.
guess it could be. He says now it's around 18%. Maybe that's like alcohol by volume, perhaps.
That might be.
That's a lot. Like a typical wine is what, 13 to 15% ish?
Yeah. Well,
somewhere there?
13, it never used to be. It used to be down around the 9, 10, but nowadays, modern wines, you're right, 13, 15%.
And then an
Pretty
IPA is
powerful
usually
stuff.
anywhere from about, what, 6 to 7.5-ish, like a standard IPA beer.
Yeah.
But yeah, 20%, that's a lot. Anyway, more than you ever wanted to know, he says.
I love it, though.
No, that's good info. And I think I mistakenly mentioned that I thought that the MD 2020 was like one of those distilled grain beverages, not a actual wine. But I'm wrong. It really was sort of, I guess, a what do they call it? A fortified wine, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Hillel, what are you doing in the chat room? You need to get back to the bathroom. What are you doing here? He says, because Mogan David is such high quality line. Yeah, I know. When I said that, I was thinking the same thing, Hillel. Even their regular line of finer wines are not something that a lot of people would classify as fine. And he says also the American cheese of wines.
Yeah, true.
There's some
but
good
fair.
American cheeses out there, Hillel. Come on. Not a lot, but there are some.
I don't know.
I know. He means processed cheese, yeah. Anyway. Okay, let's see. Liz is saying that we might be able to squeeze one more in. That's what she said.
Said the actress to the bishop.
Glenn from New Zealand. He said, I thought you might like this crazy YouTube video from AvWeb. I saw this on Facebook and thought it might be of interest. And so he gives us a link to a YouTube video. And this is the point at which Liz is going to...
Gotta be a Photoshop job, right? Nope, it's real enough, all right. Shot in 1976 is one of the stranger airshow stunts in history. The human fly, also known as Rick Rojat, was a creation of a couple of sausage makers from Montreal who saw promotional gold in a mysterious superhero in a red suit. For the flying part, they turned to famed aviation entrepreneur and movie pilot Clay Lacey, who recently told AvWeb the real story behind this photo.
Well, the guy called one Sunday morning about 7. My wife picked up the phone and she said, we were still sleeping, and she said, this must be for you. And this guy came on and he said, this is a human fly calling from Montreal. He said, Evel Knievel gave me your name. And I thought, oh, great, He said, let me explain to you what I want to do. And he said, don't say anything until I'm finished. I said, okay. So I want to stand on top of a Learjet in flight. And he said, over the Bonneville salt flats, upside down with my head 2 feet to the ground. He said, what do you think? I said, well, fly. I said, I'd have to give this a lot of thought. And I don't have much time to think about it right now, so I'm really not interested in.
But a week later, Lacey realized the human fly stunt would be...
Anyway, little bit of a clip, a little teaser to the video that we have the link to in the show notes. But if you're listening to the audio only podcast and haven't had a chance to look at the link in the show notes, the human fly is actually on top of I think it's a 707, isn't it?
I thought it was a DC-8, but I might be wrong.
Or a DC-8? Yeah, it's one of those.
4-engine airliner.
Yeah, 4-engine airliner, and yeah, it's kind of crazy looking. It's flying very low to the ground, and this guy is kind of standing up on top and propped up with some kind of a propping device. And I'm not sure.
He's like tied to a post sticking out the top of the fuselage.
Can you imagine like getting awakened in the morning by a call from a guy that wants to stand on a Learjet and
particularly when he introduces himself over the phone as, "Hi, I'm the human fly."
The human fly.
Pardon?
Right. And he's Canadian. That's even more reason to be suspect. So Anyway,
they got some strong drink in Canada, don't they?
They do, yes. I'm not sure what they're drinking up there, but it must be strong. Anyway, so please check it out. Thank you, Glenn, for sending that. He says, Talons, Douglas, and blue skies with unlimited visibility. Hope everything is going well for you, Kiwis, down under. All right. With that, it is a DC-8, according to Colin Goon. Thank you, sir. And it's now time for the best part of the show, which is, of course, the old pilot's plain tale for this episode, and it's entitled, It's Not What You Say. Oh, I love the music.
The old pilot's plain tales. It's not what you say. I was recently digging through some old airline paperwork and came across a delightful booklet from my old airline entitled Cabin Address from the Flight Deck, Briefing Notes and Suggestions. The book is more than 20 years old, so the content might on occasions fail to reflect current sensitivities, but I thought it was worth digging into so that I could share some of its suggestions with you. The art of making a good public address is attempted by many, achieved by some, but mastered by few, and I am certainly not going to tell you which category I fell into, but I suspect you'll draw your own conclusions. The editor goes on to single out the notables who contributed and whose names have now passed into the annals of Virgin Atlantic history. Apparently, the most common complaint from our passengers about the work of our flight deck crews concerned the quality and quantity of the public address. The esteemed editor reminds us that there was a time when the captain was very visible to his passengers. Even when this booklet was written, more often than not, the only contact we had was through the PA. What you said and when you said it influenced to a very large degree the perception that the passengers had of both you and the airline. Commercial told us that one of the largest groups of passenger complaints concerned announcements from the flight deck. If you need any further convincing, he gave us a quote. Of course, we love you for getting us from A to B and not crashing, and we do like to be given useful information about the flight, but we don't want to be woken up on a night flight to hear that we're cruising at 33,000 feet. That's what we hoped. Conversely, if there's something unusual happening, a delay, a technical problem, engine fire, etc., we want as much information as possible and fast, followed by regular updates. There are a lot of nervous people back here, you see. The Telegraph journalist Tom Utley put it well when he wrote, "It's not what he says that matters. What is all important is the way that he says it. Laid back, but utterly authoritative, drawling but alert, good-humoured and even matey, yet somehow unapproachable, a little superior." What he is telling his passengers is that, whilst flying may terrify them, for the next 13 hours he will be in charge, and they couldn't be in safer hands. Brave and unflappable, he is a British airline pilot, a master of the skies. I'm sure something similar could be said of pilots from other countries as well. I'm told by my booklet that when I speak, two things happen. Firstly, the passengers will stop and listen because, oddly enough, they listen to pilots. Remember, this was in the days before everyone came on board plugged into their smartphones. You do, after all, have their lives in your hands, and a good half of them are in varying degrees of terror about flying. Secondly, they will each form a mental picture of how they visualize the person behind the voice. Their mental picture will be coloured by TV and film characters. Maybe not a bad thing, as few of us have that lean figure, lantern jaw, dazzling white teeth, steely blue eyes, and hair slightly greying at the edges. But they don't know that. What you do have is the undivided attention, a captive audience for a few minutes, so make the most of it and speak clearly. It's not a bad idea to ask those with you on the flight deck to keep their noisier, vulgar comments to themselves for a while. Also remember that most people have an attention span of somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute. So the last 9 minutes of a 10-minute oration will usually be wasted. At this point, our booklet compares the average passenger to a goldfish. Not very PC, sir. Above all, do not forget that for many of your passengers, English isn't their first language, and that could also apply to many who live in North America. Still not very PC, sir, and I'm sure he didn't mean to include Canada. The content of your PA will depend on the occasion, but all PAs have one thing in common. They're passing on information. Think about what you would like to know as a passenger, and remember that our detailed research shows that next to safety, time is the watchword. Time to depart, time to take off, time to seatbelts, time to a meal, time to destination. The traveller is governed by time. Your passengers vary greatly, but again, research shows that the majority are nervous flyers, and up to 5% classify themselves as frightened or very nervous. It's up to you to reassure all those people who have put their trust in you that you are up to the job and that the flight will be enjoyable. Bear in mind that many are well-travelled. Do try to avoid any hint of talking down to them. The pre-departure PA is the most important of the whole flight and will set the tone. It should always be done by the captain, as most people are odd in one respect, and somewhat insulting to whoever occupies the right-hand seat. They feel cheated if they do not hear the voice of the boss, at least at the start of the flight. Incidentally, many do not want to know that the co-pilot is flying them. They've paid to be flown by the captain, not his assistant. If you wish to introduce your colleagues, all well and good, but no one will remember. It's a pleasure having you on board, but that's the last time you should use you, as from now on, we do things together. Always be positive. We may be a little late closing the doors, but with our short flight time, we should arrive on schedule. Nevertheless, try to be as honest as possible. If a pair of mechanic's legs are protruding from an engine, do not expect many to believe you if you announce an ATC delay. Don't elaborate too much on your route. Mention the countries and main geographical features, but not the little village of Lower Piddlecombe. The weather en route and at your destination will be of interest, but the forecast is always good in the friendly skies of Virgin Atlantic. Your heights and speeds will only be of passing interest to most. Introduce the in-flight supervisor, because by doing that you're making him or her responsible for the passengers' well-being in the cabin. Finish by emphasizing the superb hospitality that Virgin has in store for them. During the flight, keep PAs to a minimum, as points of interest can only be seen by 1 in 10 passengers, so keep your lyrical descriptions of the snow-capped mountains of Greenland to yourself. It can be useful to give a time of arrival and the local time at the destination for passengers with a connection, but many like to hibernate during the flight, and others don't really want their film to be interrupted at the moment critique. If in doubt, don't. An essential call should be made approaching destination, in coordination with the cabin crew. Overhead banger and arriving on schedule will mean absolutely nothing to 95% of your passengers. Give the local time and the arrival time, and never say, "I hope to have you on the gate," as to some this will have overly exciting sexual connotations. We trust that you have enjoyed the flight. Other airlines only hope you enjoy the flight. Avoid the temptation to make a goodbye call when taxiing after landing. The PA should not be used while the aircraft is in motion on the ground. Passengers expect delays, and by and large don't mind, provided they're kept informed. Once a delay is inevitable, make your first PA, and if you don't know how long it will be, say so. Undertake to keep your passengers informed and keep to it. Set a stopwatch and make a call every 10 to 15 minutes, even if you have nothing new to add. 15 minutes can seem short to you, but it's a long time if you're strapped in. The passengers like to know that you haven't given up and are not, right now, downing your first pint in the pub. Don't be too technical, but whatever you do, don't just say, "We have a technical problem," or many passengers will assume something major has happened, like a wing has become detached. Most people will understand an instrument indication problem, a hydraulic problem, or perhaps a problem with one of our 4 electrical generators. They will think, "Gosh, how meticulous. Everything has got to work. I don't mind a little delay for that." Emphasize that technical delays are for their safety. A delay for weather or ATC congestion is just that, but you can get on dangerous ground if you start blaming a loading delay on a named company handling agent. As far as the passenger is concerned, everything is being run by Virgin. It's always best to be honest without being too specific. Don't keep apologizing. Apologize once only. It's not your fault. You're just the messenger, and you're pulling out all the stops. When the delaying issue is rectified, it's rectified. No one wants to know that you're taking a below-par aircraft for commercial reasons. Always bear in mind the potential nervous state of your passengers. When they get white caps on their coffee, a few words of calm explanation from the driver will be appreciated. Similarly, in any sort of emergency, the passengers require your calm reassurance that you have everything under control. Holding and diversions require the passengers to be told. They will very soon realize that you're in a holding pattern, and what they want to know is why and for how long. If a diversion is necessary, then be upbeat about a return time and Virgin assistance. Aircraft nearby in a holding pattern can appear to be flying remarkably close, and to the passenger who can see out of the windows, they may appear to be a hazard. An announcement may be apposite when, during turns, other aircraft may actually appear to be flying in formation with you. The same rule holds for occurrences during flight as it does for delays on the ground. There is only one thing a passenger abhors more than bad news, and that's no news at all. A couple of in-flight PAs might be, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. As you're probably aware, we have had a technical problem with an engine. The problem has been dealt with, so there's no cause for alarm. I have decided to return to Heathrow, but before we do so, we need to reduce our weight by dumping some of our fuel. This will take approximately 30 minutes, and we will be landing in approximately 40 minutes from now.
Our staff at Heathrow will then make every possible effort to ensure that you can continue your journey as soon as possible. Thank you for your attention.
Another might be...
This is the captain. As you are aware, we have had a technical problem with our cabin pressurization system. We have restored the cabin pressure now, so you may continue to breathe without the use of the oxygen masks. I apologize for any anxiety that you may have been caused, but because we're now cruising at a lower level, we will be unable to reach New York with our normal reserves of fuel and have decided to land at Bangor, Maine. We expect to arrive in 2 hours and will then make every effort, blah, 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 etc., etc.
The mental picture that each passenger begins to form about you and your ability is dependent on how you deliver your PAs. We all have our own characteristics and styles, and these suggestions are not an attempt to make us all sound the same, but are advice on how to deploy our personal characteristics more effectively. The calm, relaxed, professional, but above all authoritative manner in which you deliver your PA is all important. For example, think about what you will say. Speak up and clearly. Vary the pitch in your voice. Project yourself to the public. Be upbeat whenever possible, giving bad news first and ending with the good news. That way, with any luck, the passengers may have forgotten the bad news by the time you finish. Be careful in the use of humour. The next moment you may have to be very serious indeed. Most definitely do not tell jokes. Whatever you do, don't rush, tail off, use technical terms or abbreviations, be pessimistic, sound bored or lethargic, go on too long, don't or ah. Some terms not to use are GMT, Cat 1, 2 or 3, stack, hold, wind shear, dangerous, speed over the ground, take a risk or take a chance, ever. When you pick up a microphone to talk to the passengers, you have an immensely powerful weapon. That's what she said. Used well, it will tell your passengers that your airline is the best, most caring airline in the business. Used badly, it will not only shoot you and the airline in the foot, but it can cause much grief, lose repeat business, and, if there are a bunch of American lawyers in the cabin, cost much money. With that in mind, before I finish this tale, a personal anecdote. One of our more colourful and outspoken senior cabin crew was making a PA to wake the sleeping crew members in the crew rest area. An error was made in selecting the zone where the announcements could be heard. Instead of selecting the code for the crew rest area, the selection for the entire aircraft was entered instead. In their usual loud and dulcet tones, the call was made.
Hey, wake up you lazy effers. It's breakfast time and the cattle need feeding.
With a speed that speaks volumes for why this crew member remained in their senior position for many years after, this audacious PA was followed by another, in a sweet, placatory tone.
May I remind passengers that the use of the aircraft announcement system is restricted to the crew only.
Love that music. So that's how you got out of that one, huh?
Yeah, it could just have been me, but luckily it wasn't. No,
that is
no,
funny.
It was the lovely Linda, and she was a wonderful senior cabin crew, full of stories, and stayed with the company for many, many years. Sadly, retired now.
Oh, that's funny. Really, really good points made about public addresses.
Well, rather old-fashioned, to be true, though. Little, not quite PC, but to be fair, the vast majority of that came direct from the book. You know, the worry that your passengers will think you've gone to the pub included, etc. So I think it's great. Very, very good. I'm so glad I found it. It's and I've got to say, my huge thanks to Captain John Reed, who was an airline pilot with British Airways, and the cartoonist that gave me permission to use his cartoons from that book to illustrate that. And he's still going very strong. Runs a lovely florist flower company in Devizes, and I managed to find him, got in touch with him, and he said yes, more than welcome.
Oh, nice.
And in fact, he sent me copies of the original cartoons so that I could use them for this show. So if you, I don't suppose he's going to listen, but if you do, John, thank you very much indeed, much appreciated.
Very good. Yeah, so please, well, these should be in the chapters when you're playing the audio-only version on your device. And if your device has the capability to show the images associated with these markers/chapters, you'll get to see all those great cartoons. And that was awesome. I really enjoyed that one, Nick.
Oh, thanks. Good.
All right. Well, we are coming toward the end of part 1. And again, a reminder that we will have a couple of other co-hosts joining us very soon. In fact,
the also-rans, the second team, second 11,
the second what was it called? The second class, the B team. I'm thinking of the people on the bench.
Substitutes.
I don't know. Anyway. So look forward to that. And
I'm going to get so much stuff.
I know.
On the next show.
I'll have to do my best to clean all that up.
Just don't mention it. Just pretend it now. They're not going to listen to the first half anyway.
That's right. That's true. Anyway, enjoyed doing part 1 with you, Nick, and I look forward to part 2 as well. And then I look forward also to seeing you on the next episode next week.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Jeff. Brilliant being on for this half, and enjoy the next half in a couple of hours. I'm going to be pushing up Zeds.
Very good. Take care, man.
Thanks, mate. All the best. Bye-bye.
Da-boom. All right. I'm going to hit the stop button.
Second string, says Micah.
That's it. That was
That's
the term
if you've
I was
only got
looking for.
2 strings.
Second
is that
string.
Right?
Thank you, Micah. Man.
Now, fix it in
the
post,
mind is
Jeff.
a terrible thing to lose.
You've got to have one. Just lose it, Jeff.
Yeah, that's true. I'm enjoying
I had a disaster. I nearly had a beer on my... This is green, so...
I was looking at this label thinking, well, this is not a blue label, but now I see what's happening. It's a green label, and it's picking up the logo.
Yeah, it's quite good, isn't it?
Green screen.
Anyway, I flipped it open halfway through there, new beer in there, and it just went everywhere. It just foamed over the top. Yeah, and I had beer all over the disc.
Oh, did you get it on any electronic equipment?
I don't think so.
Good.
Nothing went fizz bang.
Like
so
that would never happen at your house.
No.
That was fun.
Exactly right. Yes, absolute panic. But how is that keyboard? Is it hanging on in there?
It's working fine. Actually, it's working better than the newer MacBook that I have that I spilled red wine on. The space key doesn't function very well. It doesn't click. It just it works. It's just
you're never going to be in space, so you won't need the space key. That's all right.
But this keyboard, my Bluetooth keyboard, is still working okay. So
cool. Excellent.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, brilliant. Well, have a lovely show with everyone else. I'm sorry to miss Steph and Rick. It's be nice to actually get us all together for a change, but
it will. Maybe we can do that next week. I don't know. We can cross our fingers and hope. I don't know when Rick will be returning from his 17-day
Yeah, I was under the impression this 7.6 was going to give him a lot of time at home in America.
We were all under that impression.
So, well, needs must.
Yes.
They're a very demanding outfit, aren't they? They
Apparently
certainly
so.
keep him busy.
Yeah.
Mind you, he is visiting some of the nicest cities in the world. Not getting a lot of time there, but Sydney's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it'll be it'll be chilly. It won't be very warm there this time of year, but getting better.
Yep. I would think so.
Mm.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll very shortly end this broadcast, set up another YouTube event, YouTube/Facebook event for part 2, and then update the Airline Pilot Guy on YouTube webpage with the appropriate links, and then we'll see you. Oh, yeah, and Liz says she'll send out some messages to everyone regarding the...
individual messages.
I think she has a long list of people that she sends.
Individually.
Yes, individuals. Yeah, for sure.
Each one can post
with a personal note
to
each and every one.
Yeah.
She's just kind of that kind of person.
She's going to keep her busy, isn't it?
Yeah, it will. Anyway, so with that, we'll see you all later on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, good night. See you next week.